Apparently that's a cue to begin. Good evening, good folks. We will open this evening's budget hearing. We appreciate folks being in attendance. A couple of key things to begin and to frame our budget hearing. One, again, the board is always appreciative for folks sharing and the engagement. There is a 3-minute timer. You will hear it. I will do my best to keep folks to those 3 minutes. If you are nearing the end of your comments, I'll ask you to finalize what you're saying so it's not a significant hard cutoff. A reminder about Board of Education policy. It is against board policy to name any employee or student or board member by name. If that is done, again, I will interject. I will interject with the comments that are being there. We will provide a little bit more of a timeline in terms of how we got here as well. We are honored that Amanda Verba will present a little bit of the information for the revote budget as well. If there are questions that folks have, please feel free to ask. If we do not have them already answered, we will ensure that they get put up on what I would consider a robust Q&A page. Amanda, thank you to you and your team. I know it is not always the easiest for some folks to navigate given the number of questions, but it has a good search feature as well. And if you are unable to find the information that you're looking for, please, by all means, use the Let's Talk portal or reach out to either the board as a whole or individual board members, and we will do our best to present you with the information that you are seeking. The good thing about being a governmental agency is all information is out there, while I also recognize it is not always the easiest to find. So for this evening, we'll begin with a 3-minute revisiting of additional information. Again, I would remind our community and folks at home that there have been multiple board meetings discussing the revote budget. One that happened immediately after the last vote, as well as our meeting last Monday, my apologies, our meeting last Monday. So folks can check that meeting out as well for additional information. But again, probably the best mode of communication would be to reach out directly to board members and or our exec team. So with that, and then lastly, apologies. Our current hearing has, as we've had practice for some time, is scheduled for 30 minutes. I see that there are more than 10 people who have signed up. And so the budget hearing will go as long as necessary for the people who've signed up on the list. And if I see my colleague, Dr. Jill Tripp, has the sheet, and I would ask to give Jill Tripp grace for any name pronunciations. And if we misspeak your name, if you would please speak your name into the microphone when you come up so we can make sure we have an accurate recording of folks who spoke to the board this evening. So Amanda, thank you greatly for joining us. And if you want to begin with a revisiting of the budget that the board has put forward for next week's vote, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the budget hearing for the proposed revote budget. The date for the budget revote is June 18th. That is on a Tuesday. It is the same polling locations that you used in the prior vote in May. It is also the same time frame, noon to 9, and it will be the same format, right? You'll have ballots there. There will only be 2 propositions on this ballot. The first is the budget information. As you can see, thank you to Dr. Tripp, we created just a 1-pager that we've been using at the community conversations that sort of captures the current budget that we're in, which is sort of that header above the top of this slide. We are in fiscal year 24. Fiscal year 24's budget amount is $158,588,080. And the current fiscal year 24 levy is $714,290. In May, along the bottom of this slide, this is just a summary of what was proposed in May that was rejected by the voters. The board came back together immediately after those results were delivered, and they considered a couple of options, of which you see two of them on this slide. The first one on the left is the proposed revote budget. This is the budget that you will see on the ballot in June 18th. You will see that this budget, unlike the budget that went out in May, has an amount that is a 2.79% increase from the current $158 million. So we're asking for $163 million. We are asking for a levy amount that is just over $3 million from the prior year, or a 2.92% increase. That is below the tax cap calculation that we provide to New York State, which is $111 million. So this is actually below that tax cap. If you compare the budget revote to the May proposition, the Board of Education, the executive team, the budget developers, and other stakeholders came together and reduced that initial budget in May by about $5.9 million. If you'd like further details about those reductions, including graphics around the units that are most impacted, the salaries associated with those units, the number of positions that are impacted with those reductions, the June 3rd board meeting slide deck is available in multiple locations, both on board docs and also on the school district website, the budget development website. We have also added information that will help voters be more informed, which will include things like a revenue projection document. You saw this with the original budget. This is corrected now for the budget revote, and it shows all the different revenue streams that the district will be bringing in, none of which have changed except for the levy. We're still having a reduction in foundation aid, but just a little bit of an increase in state aid. We are seeing other revenue sources increase, mainly due to our investments that we have, as well as our reimbursements for Medicaid and our BOCES refunds, which are monies that we don't use at the end of the year. We are also allocating fund balance and reserves at the same amount. So there are savings accounts dollars that are being allocated to balance the budget to support this change in revenue that we have experienced. Along with the revenue projection, there is a budget presentation report, which is the line by line budget that people often like to look at because it tells you very specifically by code, and our budgets work by code, what the monies are going towards for the operations. And you can start right at the code 1010, and you go all the way through to the 999 codes. And you can see that we have made improvements to that document. We have included not just the prior year, the current fiscal year that we're living in, along with the proposed budget amount, the dollar change and the percentage change, but also if it is a salary line, the number of positions that are included in that salary line. That was direct feedback that we received from community members and stakeholders to have it in one place so that you didn't have to go searching. So that is all on that document for you as well. Again, that is found on the website, the budget development website. Finally, on the far right, there has been a request to also allow for stakeholders and community members and voters to understand what happens if the revote does not pass. The revote requires a 50% passage rate because it is under the cap. If a revote does not pass in New York State, school districts go to contingency budgets. Contingency budgets, it does not mean that someone from New York State Education Department comes in and does a takeover. What it means is that there are prescriptions by law and statute that are outlined that boards of education must follow to identify what they are allowed to spend their monies on and what they can determine what is remaining to spend the monies on, given the remaining amount of money that they have after they fund the mandated programs and hold true to the bargained agreement contractual obligations. So you will see here that a contingency budget, there's information here. The levy must remain the same as the year that you are in. So you'll see that 107 million is the same as that bar across the top. There is no vote required because this is where you land after that revote if it's not passed, and it would require additional reductions. Total of 9 million from the May proposition, and then another, as you can see, from $5.9 million where we are right now. That would be another 3.1 million. So you will see that we'll have to make $3.1 million. There's also a lot of, wonderings about the tax rates. We put those as well. Please note that those are estimations. Those estimations must be estimations because we do not receive total taxable value amounts for our Ithaca City School District until August. And that comes from the Tompkins County Department of Assessment.
Very helpful. Board members, anything that you'd like to add?
Can we take a minute? People won't take their seats. I think more people are standing here. Just wondering.
I don't know if there's any more chairs for folks to sit.
There's, like there's 3 or 4 chairs here and one over there. People want to try to take this moment to find a chair, see them stand.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda, for that brief overview. There may come opportunities where we are not able to answer a question here this evening. But again, we're keeping record of all questions that are asked, and we will do our best to promptly update the FAQ page. If you do not find an adequate response, again, reach out to your board members or use the Let's Talk portal. With that being said, in respect out of people's time, we will begin the hearing part of this budget hearing, and I'll yield to my colleague, Jill.
First up, Jacob Schifrin.
That is how you pronounce my name. Thanks, Jill. I hate talking first. I hate being timed. Let's go. So my name is Jacob Schifrin. I'm a parent of 3, a 9th grader, a 1st grader, and a soon-to-be kindergartner. And I'm also an educator. I was a teacher, a principal, and I designed coursework for in-service teachers in elementary education. I grew up in Ithaca, was away for a while, and I've now been back for 3 years. And back in the day, my dad was on the Board of Education. So I just want to say I deeply respect how hard you work for no money and a lot of grief. So since I grew up here, I have seen some positive changes in the Ithaca City School District, in particular attention paid to students who were, I think, very much marginalized 30 years ago. And the teachers, for the most part, I see one of my kids' teachers here are wonderful and care deeply about kids. In the midst of this, I worry that there is an issue with leadership and direction that is being confused for a budget crisis. I think it was a huge mistake to try and pass a budget that raised taxes so significantly. I do plan on voting yes for this new, more reasonable budget. I was reading Dr. Brown, who recently said regarding
Please, no names.
What? Oh.
Please do not mention any names.
Oh, okay. I was reading the superintendent. Okay, sorry. Who said we want to be inclusive, it costs. We want to be equitable, it costs. And we want to be the best school district in America, it is expensive. And personally, as a parent, I don't care about us being the best school district in America. As a parent, I care about the basics of a safe and supportive learning environment, a well-taught and coherent curriculum, and the opportunity for my kids to grow as social and productive human beings. And I don't think this requires out-of-the-box thinking. It requires a district-wide commitment to getting the basics right and doing what works instead of stuff like saying that we're going to be the best school district in America. I want to share a few reflections and ideas. I think we could all agree that we want safe environments for all kids. And so the state of behavior in the Ithaca City School District that I have seen is I don't believe that there's a district-wide approach to basic classroom management. There's a commitment to meeting the needs of individual students, but not a commitment to classrooms where learning can consistently take place. My kindergartner spent the first 3 months of the school year in an environment where a student constantly screamed vulgarities without being removed from the classroom. Very little learning happened, and I'm shocked that that teacher didn't quit. This year, my child's teacher did quit after 3 months of failing to set up a safe learning environment. So this is actually the norm for my kid, like not an exception. I wish we had district-wide expectations for behavior to ensure that every classroom is a learning environment, that we trained teachers on how to set up routines and procedures and manage a class and implemented a district-wide approach for social emotional learning. I also want coherent academics for kids, and I think we could agree on that as well. Right now, I have no guarantee that my elementary age child will have, for example, time in science and social studies. Despite a year-long pilot and assurances to me that that Ithaca City School District would select a reading comprehension program, they have not identified a reading comprehension program for K-2 or for 6-8.
If you could summarize, that'd be great.
Sure. So I want to say that our kids right now are in school and they're waiting to learn. I think there are things that work, such as I hope we pass a cell phone ban at the middle school. That works. I hope that we adopt curriculum for our K-8 programs. That works. And I think the budget wasn't just voted down because of money. It also was because of concern about the direction of the district, because we spend too much money to fail to do what works. And I think that all students suffer as a result, especially for those who depend on school the most. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Before we proceed, anyone who speaks or does not speak or is not able to finish your comments, please know you can send your comments to the board clerk in full, and they will get to all board members, so we have the opportunity to read all of them as well. Dr. Tripp.
Heather Beasley.
Hi, this is my first time speaking here, so I'll do my best. I am the parent of 2 children, a 2nd grader and a 4th grader at Cayuga Heights Elementary School. I've been very active in the PTA council, in enrichment programs for children at the schools. I'm an educator, a math specialist, and do teacher education work. So I really value the work that you all are doing and the commitment to improving our schools, and on behalf of my own family and children, but also on your focus on inclusive education and supporting marginalized students. I'm here to speak in favor of voting for the revote. I believe that voters made their voices heard on May 21st. The revised budget represents a significant decrease from what was originally proposed, from a 6.5 increase in overall spending to a 2.8 increase. And we also have 3 new board members as a result of the vote. So I think that voters have made a statement, and now it's time to make a statement in favor of our children and our teachers and our communities. Just a few points that I think have gotten mixed in with the decisions to vote for or against the budget. Higher level district administrators have individual contracts with the Board of Education. Therefore, the issue of administrator salaries, including the superintendents, is a separate issue from budget negotiations. If the revised budget doesn't pass on June 18th, we go to a contingency budget. And I don't know for certain what the consequences of that are in terms of cuts in staff programming and services, but I do know that it will directly impact our school and our children. And this is not fear mongering, it's the reality of a contingency budget. I feel like that the revised budget has also helped support us in understanding some clarified priorities, including literacy and math curriculum. My understanding is that the revised budget emphasizes those as priorities. Also, the property assessment, if we vote down the budget, is not going to change. It really has had an impact on all of us who are homeowners in the district. And I feel the pain, and I know a lot of people do. If we vote down the budget, it's not going to change our assessments. This is an issue that could be taken up with the local tax assessor and our state representatives and longer term advocacy about how we support and fund our public schools. To summarize, if you voted no once as a statement of discontent, now it is time to vote yes as a statement of support for our children, teachers, school, and broader community. I've been in conversation with many educators, teachers, after-school program coordinators, and they're all very, very, very concerned and worried that this next budget is going to go down and that will go to a contingency.
Last statement, please.
Yes. Please don't rely on social media posts for information. Take action now to educate yourself about the realities of the budget options. I've been really encouraged by the receptivity of board members and ICSD administrators in regards to inviting questions and dialogue and addressing questions and concerns. So thank you.
And again, I will do my best to gently encourage folks to stick to the timeline as best as I possibly can. Dr. Tripp.
Rebecca Fisher.
I talk fast, so that shouldn't be a problem.
People listen slow.
My name is Rebecca Fisher, and I'm here to advocate for the proposed budget and our current administration. I speak today as a homeowner, business owner, community member, ICSD staff member, and parent. These views are my own and may not represent the opinions of everyone within these groups. The recent budget rejection underscores our community's frustration with the assessment process, rising house costs that outpace income growth, and systemic challenges within our school system. These issues are not unique to the ICSD, but are significant concerns that need to be addressed. Adopting a contingency budget would result in significant cuts to essential programs such as sports, field trips, arts, after-school activities, and PTA programs. These programs are essential for working families and student enrichment, offering safe spaces and access to opportunities for students to explore their interests, develop new skills, and build relationships beyond the classroom. A contingency budget would further increase class sizes, diminishing individual attention for students and adversely affecting academic performance. This places an overwhelming burden on teachers who are already stretched thin and nearing burnout as they strive to meet the diverse needs of their students. This can lead to lower academic performance, increased behavioral issues, as students are less likely to receive the support they need. Smaller class sizes are crucial for fostering a conducive learning environment where students can thrive. Reflect on someone who believed in you during your childhood. Were they an educator, an ESP, a related service provider? For me, it was my track coach who instilled in me perseverance and hard work. This relationship had profound impact on my development and success. Athletics and arts provide purpose, community, and accountability to our students. Our athletic director repeatedly states that our scholars are scholar athletes and scholars first. The success of our children lies in the relationships they build with educators. Teachers, administrators, including deans, educators for inclusion, and associate principals are essential to student development. If students need accountability provided by the building administrators around attendance, grades, and social navigation to foster self-reliance and independence. With the already imminent cuts, I am very concerned for the impact of all of our children, especially marginalized folks. Positive role models are particularly vital for students of color. The absence of these influences due to the lack of financial support for those positions that are on the chopping block significantly impact children's identity, self-esteem, academic performance, behavior, career aspirations, and mental health. Seeing themselves reflected in their mentors helps students of color foster a positive sense of identity and belonging. It's important to recognize the inadequacy of teacher salaries. Teachers are the backbone of our educational system, yet their compensation does not reflect their crucial role. We also need systems to support building administrators who handle day-to-day. I can talk faster.
A closing
All right,
statement.
I will summarize. I will skip ahead to, all right, last step, two paragraphs. So though any tax increase is a challenge, it's necessary investment in our children's future and the vitality of the town. While concerns about the superintendent and central administration salaries are valid, it's crucial to consider the severe impact a contingency budget would have on our children. It's also important for us to consider whether our implicit biases could be affecting our perspectives. Prioritizing our children's education is not about dollars and cents. It's about ensuring a thriving, vibrant community where families want to live and grow.
Larson Wing. Oh,
We'll cycle back or we'll check
Okay.
with them with Emily if need be.
Melissa Gonzalez.
Hi, my name is Belisa Gonzalez, and I am speaking today as a parent of 2 young children, an educator, a supporter of public education, and as someone who comes from a proud family of teachers. I am also speaking as a taxpayer and a homeowner, although these 2 last identities are not my guiding north. My guiding north is equity and justice. And in this case, equity in education. I'm here to urge folks to vote in favor of the revote budget. While the revote budget is a watered down version of that which I believe we needed, it is the best chance we have at continuing to invest in our children's education, a point that has been lost far too often. This is not just a vote for my children, but all children and students who attend ICSD schools and the people who educate, feed, transport, and keep them safe throughout the school year. We are a community, and as such, it is our responsibility to think about not just our children and our future, but everybody's. And while that absolutely includes finding solutions for a lack of affordable housing in Ithaca, this budget vote will not fix or even begin to address that complex problem. What a vote against a revote budget will do is ensure that the most vulnerable amongst us continue to suffer the consequences of centuries-old inequality. If we do not pass the revote budget, the contingency budget goes into effect, which means that ICSD buildings will only be available for instructional programming. This consequence will eliminate all partnerships with outside groups that meet in those buildings, such as sports like elementary grade basketball, which I coach, that are run through the Ithaca Youth Bureau, the Lego League, any partnerships with Cornell and Ithaca College. PTA programming will also be severely limited. Even school-sponsored extracurriculars will be negatively impacted and limited. Any program you can think of that has a community partner and meets in an ICSD building will be canceled under a contingency budget. This is not only undermines our relationship with the larger Ithaca community, but it also limits participation in the types of programs that have been shown to have a positive impact on graduation rates and increased educational attainment overall. Under a contingency budget, partners and programs that occur in non-ICSD buildings will also be negatively affected by the limitations placed on transportation. This means children and parents who rely on ICSD buses to transport children to aftercare programs such as GIAC, Ithaca Youth Bureau, IC3, and et cetera, would now have to find another way to get them there. For many of us, that would mean leaving work early, which again would have a disproportionate impact on hourly and part-time workers. Under a contingency budget, there is no purchasing of new supplies or materials of any kind. And again, this would have a negative impact. I'm going to make my closing statement. I learned from the other folks. Disproportionately impact on economically disadvantaged families, as teachers would rightfully look to parents to supplement those supplies. And so I ask you to vote yes on the revote. And while you're looking at the wonderful materials that are available on the board website about the contingency and the revote budget, I want us to ask ourselves, what kind of community do we want to be? The one that considers ourselves and our own interests, or the one that always considers those who are most negatively affected by our decisions, and in this case, our vote?
Ellie Fulmer. Ellie Fulmer.
Hi, everyone. I'm writing to express my strong support for the revote budget that you have voted to move forward with, to bring to a vote. I wish to urge ICSD voters to vote yes, as opposed to falling to a contingency budget. I am also writing in support of equity and inclusion efforts of ICSD, including restorative justice, a new dress code that I've heard about, Black Lives Matter at School Week, and the Students of Color Summit, as well as many informal ways that ICSD educators lift their voices to support all students. I'm a teacher, educator, and a social scientist at Ithaca College as a faculty member in the Department of Education. I work with my colleagues to prepare future teachers, and many of our graduates become teachers in ICSD. I have the privilege of being a visitor in Ithaca schools every single semester, and I work closely with our very skilled mentor teachers in ICSD classrooms. My colleagues and I pride ourselves on working side by side with our partner schools, teachers, and programs, and listening to their needs. In this letter tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but from the informed position of my professional practice as someone who studies education and works closely with new and experienced teachers. I support the revote budget. Language at the most recent board meeting that I saw online, where one of the speakers during public comment included in his statement against a budget revote, they said probably all of you, implying the board members, deserve a contingency budget. This is a misunderstanding about who the school district budget serves and who would be negatively impacted by a contingency budget. Meeting the academic, health, and social needs of children and youth is expensive. A vote for contingency budget would come with devastating results for children across ICSD, as well as making educators' efforts more challenging than they already are. There is a full and detailed PowerPoint available, thank you, to learn more about the revote budget versus a contingency budget, and I hope all of us are able to read that. So this may now be common knowledge, but I wanted to share. In short, a contingency budget would halt after-school programs, field trips, and extracurriculars. It would increase class sizes and cancel nearly all transportation beyond AM and PM school buses, such as a pause in transportation to offsite after-school programs like GIAC and YMCA that families rely on. Class sizes would undoubtedly increase due to fewer classroom teachers because of a contingency budget, which comes with a hiring freeze, as I understand it. I've taught elsewhere in a 5th grade classroom that was double the typical size of an Ithaca School District classroom, and it was exhausting. Words cannot describe the level of exhaustion and additional work that comes with very large class sizes. Please support educators and children by voting yes for the revote budget. Moreover, equity and inclusion efforts such as Black Lives Matter at School, restorative justice, and others are essential for students to develop critical thinking, cultivate empathy, attain high academic achievement, and establish leadership and employment skills. Almost done. These efforts in ICSD have again come under fire recently, and sometimes the critiques are directly linked to concerns over the ICSD budget. The district may not be perfect in these efforts, who is, but calls for halting them, as in cries of so-called anti-white discrimination, would be to seek to halt centuries-long efforts towards justice, not to mention halting learning and growth on these topics that would positively affect our community. Thank you.
Larson Wing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larson Wing, and I'm a former student of ICSD and a current district president. This year, 11 out of 686 New York school budgets were voted down, 1.6%. This budget had double the usual turnout and a fraction of the usual support. This could not be a clearer vote of no confidence in the way this district has previously been administrated. This reaction is not just people angry about their taxes being raised. 4 of our schools are now classified by the state as in need of serious support, a scathing designation for which the administration has not offered a plausible answer. Claiming that our schools are doing just fine and that the DOE has no issues with their performance is fundamentally incompatible with the very clear statement made by the DOE. The chief justification for the increased expenses that we've heard have emphasized the educational experiences that ICSD students receive. I went through DeWitt Middle School and Ithaca High, and I had fantastic relationships with several of the teachers at both of these schools. And I did have an excellent educational experience. Unfortunately, my little brother is now in Ithaca High School, and many of the teachers I love so much have left the district because of an emphasis on expansion of the administration at the cost of teacher support, responsibility, and compensation for our teachers, who are the best part of this district. The lack of support these teachers felt from the administration has deprived students in this district of fantastic educators, and there are direct ramifications. Our math proficiency has fallen 30% in the past decade, and Regent pass rates are decreasing as well. This revote proposal is a significant improvement over the initial budget. There are still issues. There's one crucial takeaway. We're not seeing any cuts in administrative officials, really. The average school district the size of Ithaca has a superintendent and 2 assistant superintendents. That is the entirety of their central administrative staff. We have 7 central staff rather than 3. In the past 10 years, Ithaca High alone has gained 3 associate principals and 3 deans. They've also cut a number of AP and honors classes, depriving students of the ability to push themselves and take on new challenges. During my time at IHS, they built brand new offices for brand new administrators, while teachers in the upstairs G wing were killing rats with their shoes. This revote, while it does not address all of the problems with the facing ICSD, I will still vote for it because I believe in our students, like my brother, having more than the bare minimum. Still, there are new people on the school board, there are new people in the administration, and I really would like to see more of an indication that the people in charge of this district are listening to their constituents, trimming the excess in the budget, and not trying to financially damage Ithaca residents. The administration is continuing to bloat at the expense of those they purportedly serve. So I will vote for this. I will vote for this revote budget, but I hope that in the future, the board and the administration will be more responsive to their constituents and demonstrate a real commitment to both the students they serve and fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Cheyenne Ostrich.
Hello, my name is Cheyenne Osterreich. I'm a mother of a South Hill 5th grader. I appreciate the work that the district finance office and the board has done to put together a revised budget after the previous one failed. The work and time that is going into this process is incredible, and I want to recognize that. I also want to recognize the reality that when communities vote in public school budgets, this represents one of the only times that communities get to vote on other people's salaries, public employee working conditions. To me, it is no coincidence that this industry is predominantly women. I'm going to vote for the new budget proposal. I voted for the first one. The first budget would have supported adjusting district salaries and acquiring supplies, both of which have been highly impacted by the 4% inflation we have all seen. I strongly support the district's goals that are reflected in the new budget, even though they can't meet the 4% inflation target. Our housing assessments, which have affected many people, are also driving the inflation numbers, and a lot of people in the community are suffering from the tax obligation, but are also benefiting from increase in equity. So there is some disadvantage and inequality that has been generated through that process, and I think it's important for us to consider that. All students are entitled to learning environments, students with a variety of needs, marginalized students, be it racially marginalized, low-income marginalized. For example, 40% of the students in this district are on free or reduced lunch. Students with special ed status. All of these students, just like everybody else, are entitled by law to receive the same education as high-income, white, general education children in the academic, like my son. Supporting these students, like the superintendent has said, does cost money. We need to support salaries to attract and retain the staff to foster these goals. For example, I'm strongly in support of the detracking math efforts in middle school, and this requires creativity and dedicated staff and salaries to attract such creative and dedicated staff. I want to just comment about the little pockets of love that happen in this district that would evaporate with a contingency budget. My son just had a minor surgery. He's not sleeping very well. He's a little bit uncomfortable, but he came home just yesterday to say he came up with a new way to sleep. Normally, he's very shy, but when he gets to know an adult well, he can open up to them. And he tells me he was chatting about his situation with the woman in the lunchroom that takes care of lunch and recess. And this time that the woman took to chat with him is the kind of time that evaporates with a contingency budget. Fewer staff, less time, less attention for everyone.
Closing statement.
Just want to say many people in the community are concerned about the property values. I understand, my family too, but our children, our teachers, our after-school programs, the ESPs, bus drivers, arts and athletics, they're on the line. Please vote for this revote.
Steve Manley will be joining us virtually, I believe.
You're on mute, Steve.
Okay, the first unmute button didn't work. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and the community this evening. My name is Steve Manley. I am the parent of 3 students in the school district, 2 at Bell Sherman and 1 at Beverly J. Martin. I am also the treasurer of the PTA Council. I'm here tonight to encourage individuals within our community to vote for the revote budget presented to us. I want to thank the Board of Education and the staff of the district who have worked long hours to listen to our community and who have adjusted the budget from its initial presentation and vote. The work you all have been asked to do has been physically, emotionally, and mentally demanding, and you have handled it with responsibility and with decorum. The public voted no on the previous budget and did so for a variety of reasons. This current budget may or may not respond to every one of the reasons people used individually and in their families to make their voting decision. Nevertheless, I and the executive committee of the PTA Council encourage our community to vote for this budget. A vote against this budget will not change tax assessments. Mine and my wife, our assessment went up as well. A vote against this budget will move our schools into a contingency budget, which will dramatically impact the ability of our school to provide the extra programs and opportunities that make living in this district special. A budget should be a reflection of the values of the organization that proposes it. And I am extremely grateful for the work and openness of this board and district staff for hearing the community concerns, responding by answering questions throughout the community, in person and online, and breaking down the numbers into the people, the programs, and the student-facing impact outlined by the numbers of this budget. This new budget is presented as student-facing and aims to maintain student programs, supports, and instruction. I encourage our full community to continue asking their questions and to engage with our schools and the district throughout the year. Share your thoughts, ask questions, be present. This looks different for everyone. It could be committing yourself to be present at a Board of Ed committee meeting, or joining your school PTA, or, and of course, here's a plug, joining us on the PTA Council. Next week, engagement looks like voting. Vote yes, stay engaged. Thank you for your time tonight.
every now and then we need a moment of levity, and I think Steve gets a gold star for not having the timer go off so far, so. Dr. Tripp?
Lee Rogers.
Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hi. Lee Rogers, West Hill on Hector Street. I want to open with some advice from an administrator at one of these meetings. And he asked that when we open, that we be positive and we be respectful. And I want to thank the board for being that way, for being here tonight. I see there are a couple people missing. That's too bad. There's another piece of advice that comes from veteran stand-up comedians to the fledgling comedians. And I was just informed that people didn't know this expression. Blue, going blue. That means potty talk. Okay. So the advice that the veterans comedians give to the fledgling comedians is don't do blue. If you do blue, you can't do the big rooms. Okay. So there's a lot of talk about feelings. My feeling right now is I want to go blue because it's right on the tip of my tongue, because I am desperate not to have to leave my home. And that's what this is going to do. Okay. One of the things. There's a reoccurring character on the Simpsons cartoon, and she shows up over the decades in several episodes. Now, she has one line, and she responds with this line, no matter what the issue, no matter what the subject. And that line is, what about the children? And she says it in a quivery, crying voice. That's what I feel. The only thing we're talking about here is children. Again and again, I hear, if you vote no, the children will suffer, as if this is just a community of children. We're not just a community of children, okay?
No, please, no commentary.
We're not just a community of children. Others will suffer. Working families, the very people who keep this city running, they will suffer. Single parents of school children will suffer. And grandparents, retired people on fixed incomes will suffer. Why will these demographics suffer? Because 37% of Ithacans pay 100% of the school taxes, and only the wealthy can keep up. So what about working class people? It's like working class people that work in a ski resort or a beach community. They cannot live in the community where they work. So they have to go further afield and they have to make long commutes. Single parents are stressed to the max. Believe me, I know, because I grew up with a single parent and lived in a community much like Ithaca. With my mother and two sisters, I lived in a 3-room apartment. I'll sum up. Sometimes my grandparents had to help. And what about grandparents on a fixed income? LBJ and the Great Society platform was faced with a stubborn Congress. And his argument was always, and I quote, you just can't treat grandma like that. Then Medicare came about because of that. Finally, and I am going to sum up, PR people advise that Ithaca is a liberal, progressive community. I say we don't live up to that yet, because a liberal community serves all people. A progressive community is a mixed community by race, by age, by profession, and by income. But if things don't soon change in this company town, it's going to be a gated community perfectly fitted to suit our freeloading neighbors on the east side of the lake. Send Cornell a message. Vote no on this. Sorry.
Kay Minix.
Hello, Kay Minix, West Hill. 4 things I want to hit on today. First, thank you to the retiring board members for their many years of devoted service to the education of our community's children. I really appreciate their time and their effort. Second, looking ahead to next year's school budget proposal, I hope the board heard the message this year from the people who pay the bills. Public oversight is needed in order to avoid this 12th hour reshuffling that we're living through right now. To that end, I suggest widespread publicity of board budget development meetings with early opportunity for public comment from the people who are paying the bills. Third, I would like to comment on Resolution 11.5, introduced by a board member at the May 28th meeting and tabled for further discussion. The full reading of that resolution can be found at 33553 online. In essence, the resolution calls for a negotiated MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between the Ithaca City School District and Cornell University to include an annual donation of $10 million in lieu of property taxes. In my humble opinion, passing this resolution and hiring professionals to work out a successful agreement with Cornell will go a long way to establish good faith in seeking alternate financial solutions and alleviating the growing tax burden on property owners. We've all heard the numbers. Cornell owns almost half of Ithaca City property, and most of that is tax exempt. That means a relatively small base of property owners, private homeowners and landlords alike, have to pick up the lion's share of taxes to run the whole show. It's time to demand a fair share from the billion-dollar corporate university on the Hill. Finally, I want to address the enormous tax revenue loss from New York's individual development agencies, which provide huge local tax breaks to developers and businesses, leaving individual taxpayers holding the bag once again. A recent report states that tax breaks to businesses between 2018 and 2021 cost public schools billions of dollars in tax revenues here in New York State. When developers and new businesses come into Ithaca and negotiate with City Hall for full abatements on property and school taxes for 10 years or more, we are the ones called upon to fill the financial gap. I ask the board and city council to start developing alternative tax streams to meet the growing demands of our community. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Holly Magunby.
Ali Mugambi, sorry about that. So yeah, I'm here on freestyle a little bit. First and foremost, father of 2 children in this school district, so I am here in support of the revote. I'm asking the community to get behind and support the revote for this budget. And one of the things that I haven't heard here tonight is thinking about the consequences of community members who are not able to be here right now to actually speak to this, who are working 2 jobs, who have children in the school district, who have the ability to have transportation, take them to after-school programs, and knowing that they're going to be safe and traveling, and that they can actually stay at work and make that money to actually keep them safe, provide food and shelter. And so one of the things that, many people here know that, I work on reentry issues. And so when I think about that population and just the impact that people who have been formerly incarcerated will experience when they're at the line, they are struggling day to day to try to make it. They're facing stigma, still trying to make it. If this happens, there's going to be added level of stress on their lives. In my household, we struggle to make it. If this contingency goes through, that means that we have to stop work in the middle of the day. That means losing hours. People who are not as fortunate as us are not and cannot afford to do that. And so think about the collateral consequence of the stress of passing this contingency instead of the revote. We're already at a stress level that is very high in this community. And we're seeing it. I work on State Street and I'm seeing it left and right with the people's lives who have been impacted. There's going to be more people out there on the street impacted. So we have to build a resilient community. The only way we build a resilient community is supporting each other, keeping our kids in school so they can actually participate in the after-school programs, the sports, being in classrooms that are 16 to 20 versus the 30 that we're going to have to move to. Students being able to access honors and AP courses because classrooms will be allowed to have a smaller classroom, more people having that advantage to advance their life. I used to be a first generation income challenged school prep, college prep counselor. I can tell you firsthand that those families need that. They need this ability to actually allow their kids to go and take advantage of these field trips, sports. So if we don't do this, we're seeing a collateral impact that is going to go far beyond the taxes of our property. I'm a homeowner as well, paying taxes. I've seen those increases coming. We got to scurry to figure out how to make those payments. But our children, as Whitney Houston said, are the future. And that's where we got to invest. And so that's my word. Thank you.
Jim Meehan.
Hi, my name is Jim Meehan. I'm a homeowner. I've spoken before, so I'm back here again. I want to talk about a couple of issues. One is, overall in the whole budgeting process, we've had a lot of lack of transparency. I've been coming to these meetings since April. And, the original budget, which was the highest budget that we ever talked about, we knew nothing about what was going to be in that budget. The most I ever heard was tonight when, the lady explained a little bit more detail about, the current budget that we're going to be voting on. So all we ever hear about are the dire consequences if, the current budget isn't approved. So, back in April, on that original budget, after the homeowners complained, the board discussed cutting the budget by $6 to $9 million. So, but they said if we did that, there would be layoffs. And, with layoffs is it affects morale and everything else. Well, anyway, here we are today voting on this current budget, which is $9 million less than that budget. And it appears like there are no layoffs. I mean, yes, we're not going to hire new teachers or replace retirees, but it's just like, it's hard to believe when we're given all these dire consequences. So the other issue I wanted to talk about was lack of focus on the core mission. I mean, our mission here is to educate students. I mean, I'm not anti-student. I just think how we're going about it is not effective. Why are schools failing? I mean, I hear excuses, but I don't hear any initiatives that are going to be taken to correct that issue. And that's what we should be here for. I mean, not extracurricular activities. Our mission is to educate students, and that's what we're paying for. But buses, I want to talk about buses a little bit. I think we should slow down and rethink the process. The company we've chosen, there's some controversy over whether that's the best company. Yes, we have grant money that would go towards ameliorating, reducing the cost of the buses. But if we choose the wrong bus, it's going to be the wrong decision in the future anyway. So let's just slow down, get some public input, and rethink the process. Our overall problem is, the tax base to support ICSD is too small. We need to do something about increasing support from Cornell. That needs to be done. They're using some archaic formula to compute how much support they pay. Well, it's time to throw out that archaic formula and come up with a new formula. And we need to negotiate that. So, I mean, that's one process. The other I want to talk about is tax abatements.
A closing statement.
Okay. You look at the downtown area, it's exploding, all these, multi-story residential units going in. And supposedly they all have tax abatements. We give lip service to affordable housing. The newest ones going in off of 13 now that, they're talking about don't even have affordable housing associated with them. So why is that the board's issue? Well, the board has influence in the community. They can do something about it. They can, talk to people. We need to do something. Because where we are is, it's putting all the burden on the homeowners is not going to work.
A concluding statement.
I'm going to vote no on proposal 1 and 2. I think we need to run an austerity budget and refocus on our core mission. Thank you.
Patricia Fernandez de Castro.
Good evening. So I started school when I was 4 years old in a very small village in Mexico, in Michoacan, which is one of the poorest states of Mexico. My mother used to make bread, not because she particularly enjoys cooking, but because we had no money to buy bread. I've never left school. I stayed in school to this day. I'm 65 years old, so I've been in school 61 years. As a college student and a graduate student, it was a routine thing for me to choose which of the 3 meals I was going to eat. I managed to get through school, getting scholarships and making sure my grades were good, because I knew if I failed 1 month, I was out, and that was the end of my future. So I know what it is like to be vulnerable and poor. I am sick. I have cancer. I have heart disease. I have bone issues. I'm a widow. I know what it is to be vulnerable. I know what it is not to be able to make your bills. In no community in the universe, in the world, in the known human society, are resources infinite. No matter how lofty the goal, communities must responsibly allocate resources in a sustainable manner, by which I mean in a manner that does not undermine the ability of their paying base to support them. School budgets should not force members of the community to sell and leave, which is what I'm going to do. On my way here, I passed 5, 6 houses on sale. It just seems to have happened just shortly after the school budget and the assessment became public. And I'm definitely one of those people. I'm leaving because I cannot continue to afford to live in this community. And what is that going to do to children? That is going to hurt children. The board is elected by the community, not just to serve as a conduit between the school administration and the community. It also needs to hold the administration responsible, accountable, and transparent. And let me repeat that word, transparent, vis-a-vis the community. The board has not been doing that for years. The current management of the school district already hurts the most vulnerable family, the most vulnerable children of the most vulnerable families. Let's not say it's not the contingency budget that is going to do it. It's what the school management has been doing for years. It is appalling. It is troubling that it is the poorest schools where the poorest families go that are failing. It's not the Cayuga Heights School that's failing. It is the families of privileged children that are doing well.
A closing statement.
Continuing to do what has been done for years is not going to help the community or the children. I do not think voting for this budget will lead to change. Thank you.
Meg Holbert.
Here again. I'm here to speak because I am alarmed by the lack of understanding the community has about what it means for the budget to fail again. I have heard from the community that if they vote the budget down, it will result in effectively voting out particular individuals employed by the district they do not support, or make the district support different ideals. This is a misguided belief that is not supported by facts and incorrectly associates a budget vote with those goals. Voting down the budget won't punish the individuals in the district that they dislike or change the goals or practices of the district. It will harm students, staff, and your own community. Voting down the budget will result in a contingency budget. A contingency budget is not just last year's budget. It is last year's budget beholden to a state mandate. A lot of the cuts that will happen are not by ICSD's choice, but by law. Those mandated cuts will be devastating to our community, and those cuts would mean no after-school programs, many of which accept subsidies for our struggling families. Very limited project innovation summer programming that provides support and childcare for our students over the summer. Longer and larger bus routes means students losing instructional time because they will be coming in late to school. No after-school academic support programs like extended day for our struggling students after school. 43.3 teaching positions to be cut or frozen. Teachers transferred involuntarily from schools. 28 custodians, clerks, bus drivers cut. Losing 8.9 principal positions that support student behaviors. This usually means assistant principals and deans. The already frighteningly low teacher retention rate will drop even more precipitously. Drastic cuts to athletics and fine arts, limited instructional offerings, low enrollment, AP sciences, AP classes, sciences, and languages will have to be cut. No supply budget, which means that now struggling teachers will have to supply those materials out of their own pockets. No PTA events, very limited clubs and activities to support children's passions, cultures, and potential careers. Excessively large class sizes, and no outside use of buildings by beloved groups like the Boy Scouts or Ithaca Youth Bureau, because state contingency mandate requires that outside group use of buildings must be calculated to reimburse the school for all aspects of building use. That use has to be board approved as well. This makes outside group building use cost prohibitive. Stating what will happen as required by law is not a district design scare tactic. That is the reality that will be created, that you and your neighbors, your and your neighbors' children will have to live in: an overcrowded classroom with little support for student needs, overwhelmed staff, no after-school care or academic support to help our struggling children, and no joyful events from the PTA.
Closing statement.
These children only get to be a kindergartner or sixth grader or senior one time in their life. Our community owes them an experience they will look back on and cherish. Don't let misguided beliefs rob our students of the education and experience that they deserve.
Last person we have on the list is Michael Hayes.
Good evening. I represent, or at least have the same thinking as taxpayers, homeowners, people on fixed income, disabled folks, the overtaxed who are becoming a growing underclass, threatened yearly with the need to move and sell their homes because of uncontrolled spending and pricing or budget increases by the school district. The school district cannot afford to be all things to all ideas. The taxpayers can't afford it. The taxpayers ultimately can veto any group of budgets. I saw a slide from the COO at one of the recent meetings that showed every year more and more revenue coming into the school district. That's an incorrect way to think. The company I used to run did zero budgeting every year. We started every department at zero, and they had to justify what they needed rather than cost plus, which appears to be what's done here. The school board needs to develop a trajectory of cutting costs, administrative costs and everything, being more financially efficient, not expecting a limited tax base to continue to fund every idea that it can think of. The last vote was not ended the mandate that the school board seems to be following of growth, multiple unsuccessful programs and policies. It's time to learn to live within a budget. Tax levy was steady until the 21-22 budget at about 2.7% growth a year. Not since. 14.93 million from 2022 to the present budget office, plus 10.74 million of undisclosed COVID aid that was never made public prior to the recent 8.47% budget or tax levy increase. That's 25.6 million of added taxpayer funds in 4 years, or if you count the COVID money, 37 million in tax levy increase since 2019. There's no measurable successes for all that taxpayer money. 4 of 12 schools are no longer in good standing. There needs to be a return to the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. There needs to be a return to discipline being allowed in teachers' classes. I've talked to teachers who say they can't discipline students anymore. They can't send them to the principal's office. They can't suspend them. And therefore, they don't have the ability to create a learning environment in their class. The superintendent has failed at his primary responsibility by allowing 4 schools to fall into not good standing, 2 of which have been there for potentially 2 years. The superintendent needs to be replaced by the incoming board. The vote that was recently done is a vote for a turnaround plan to get the schools back on track. And that should be the focus of the new board. Thank you. And I am voting no.
I want to thank everybody for coming out to speak. Folks who have been following board meetings for some time know that I've often said that these sorts of forums are not conducive to communication and dialogue. Thus the reason why I encourage folks to reach out to board members directly or as a whole. We have taken notes. If you've watched many folks, there is not an opportunity for board responses at this time. We would encourage you all to continue to stay with us for the next board meeting that will happen, in which there may be some board responses. But given that we have heard from everyone who has signed up, at this point in time, this will end our budget hearing, and we thank you for your participation. Thank you all.